There's something I notice almost immediately when someone starts working on their health and fitness, and it doesn't involve necessarily the workout plan or their food choices. It really shows up in how they talk about what they're doing, how quickly they're starting to look for proof that it's working, how fast they start questioning whether they picked the right approach, how many times they tweak the plan before it really has a chance to do anything. What I'm watching in those moments is a trust problem. It's not a fitness problem, or it's not even motivation. It's a trust problem. And I don't know if you've ever considered this or not, and it was something that was a big aha for me when I'd been starting on my journey and kept doing it over and over and over again, not getting results. It runs deeper than most people realize because it's not just about trusting the process. You probably heard that term before. It's about trusting themselves. So today I want to talk to you about what it actually looks like from the inside and what it takes to finally break through that. And before we get into all this great stuff, I'm going to encourage you, if you've been in that start-stop cycle and you've tried every plan out there, you probably told yourself that, head over to talktoperry.com. I'll drop that in the lower third if you're watching on video here. That pattern, it really has a name to what it is that you're doing. Let's chat about that and really identify what's going on and help you get results. That's over at talktoperry.com. So here is what the trust problem looks like in real life. A person starts a routine. A lot of times people start that at the beginning of the year, but as of this recording, we're heading into summer soon. So let's say we're starting now. The first days go okay. Then around day 4 or 5, now you might be telling yourself, no, I go at least a couple weeks, but let's say day 4 or 5, because that's where many people I'm talking to, the results aren't showing up the way they expected, and the doubt starts creeping in. I know, it's weird. We want to be on this lifelong health journey, and we're looking for instant results. I mean, that's what the infomercials are always selling to us, right? In the magazines, lose this many pounds in 4 days, that sort of thing. And we start questioning ourselves whether the approach is really right, and then we start researching options. We start making small adjustments, and hopefully those turn into big ones, but we start making the adjustments, right? And before long, the original plan, it really starts to look very, very differently. And you feel like you're starting something new with the same hope. But underneath it is the same doubt, or at least an underlying doubt that's going on. And that cycle can be exhausting. I never even identified it as doubt. But the worst part is that every time it happens, the trust gets a little bit thinner. And there's this incomplete attempt in the history that you just feels like, oh, here I go again. I shared with you last week about my friend Carol, who was saying, I'm out here to prove that this is one more thing that won't work. There was an underlying trust issue there. Something that didn't work out. Here it is again. I'm seeing it again, repeat in history. And a history, it starts to feel like, hey, this is evidence, that following through is just something I'm not capable of. I often hear what people say, well, this is about the time that I self-sabotage. And they'll live up to that. The thing is, that's not true. But it feels true when we start telling those stories. And those feelings have a way of becoming the filter where you're making every decision based on that. Well, I would eat healthy, or I'd show up to the gym, but I've got a vacation coming along. I would get in shape and do this, but I've got this big business thing going on. I would do that, but the last time I tried that, it didn't work. You never looked at the trust issue. A person, they'll tell themselves, they'll tell me when I'm talking to them, that they're paying close attention at how their body's responding. They're tracking everything. They're being very intentional. I'm showing up and the stuff is just not working. And we'll defend that. What they're actually doing, and this is what I found myself doing, they're looking for a reason to adjust or stop before the discomfort of staying the course gets any bigger. We haven't stayed in it long enough to trust the process. yet we convinced ourselves that that we do that. The attention is real, but the motive underneath, it's a self-protection thing. As I was going through my journey, I didn't even realize that I kept negotiating with myself on my commute home that, I didn't want to do this workout today, or I'm not feeling it. And I would come up with an excuse like, I had a really long day, or I've got a busy to-do list, whatever it was. I could create a compelling story. And then I would adjust the plan, and then it wouldn't work. And then I'd come up with another plan, and I would overanalyze it going in, seeing, well, is it going to fit with my schedule? Is this something I can do? Does it require this equipment? What I realized is I was looking for a crack and a flaw in the program of why it wouldn't work for me. Now, most people don't go in and do that, but we subconsciously look to scan. Is the schedule this? 6 days a week. I can't do that. That's what I did. It wanted me to exercise and show up. Get this. It was only about 25 minutes a day. And I was convincing myself I could not show up consistently for 6 days a week. I could talk a big game that I had so many other things to do. There was no way, and I would just fail at it. So why even bother, right? And we just don't stay in it long enough. So some other examples that people might say is, I'll stick with this if I see results by the end of the week, or I'll keep going if I feel better by Friday, or I'll trust the process as long as it doesn't get too hard. That was me. Those conditions, they sound reasonable, but they're actually escape hatches is what I was looking for. An escape hatch, it's almost a sign that the decision was really never made in the first place. And when you call somebody out on their decision, they will defend every reason and every limitation of why that decision was made, and everything else is getting in the way of them working, or of the plan working. So what starts to shift, it shifts the trust, is a better plan. It's not a better plan, but it's a completed plan. Even if it's a small plan, when a person shows up and follows through on something that they said they would do, something changes internally. It's not dramatic. It's quiet behind the scenes stuff, but a small deposit gets made into your internal account, and it's an account that's been overdrawn a while, right? And the next deposit gets a little bit easier to make because now there's something in there. So what I'd done, I did a few little non-negotiables for myself, and that was a big stretch because I could talk a big game about, I'm showing up, I'm going to do this, but I could also talk myself out of doing them very easily. So one was becoming aware of when I was trying to negotiate with myself, and then I was like, no, I'm doing this anyway. So I made a non-negotiable contract with myself. I told myself there's no more sitting down after, and I would exercise after work. There's no sitting down to get motivated. You get home, get your workout clothes on, and get in the gym and get it done. And there's no debate here. Even though on the drive, I was trying to debate and talk myself out of it. I was like, there's no debate. And here's your backup plan. If there is the day that it's a legit, you're low on energy, you're not feeling it, you're overwhelmed, you've got a big to-do list. If in those situations, you must commit to at least 15 minutes and of that workout, not make up something, not go and say, I walk the dog and that's my 15 minutes. It would be like I had to show up for that workout for at least 15 minutes. Almost every time I got to the 15-minute mark thinking I was done, and then I'd be like, I've only got 10 more minutes to go. So that I didn't finish the workout. See, I didn't have the trust in myself, and I didn't have the consistency going on, and I wasn't showing up for my workouts. And so once I got those things going on, the trust, I'm trusting the process, the things started showing up. My results started showing up. Sustainability and longevity, health, and fitness, it doesn't come from finding the perfect program. I think a lot of us look for that. It comes from building a relationship with yourself where your word to yourself means something again. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes these little practices. So that was my practice, was every day, got home, got the workout going, got it done. If I wasn't feeling it, got 15 minutes of it going. Most days, I just kept going after the 15 minutes. Day after day. All of a sudden, I reached my 90-day goal. I decided to almost back away. There was like a month where I backed off and I realized I was letting old sneaky habits back in. And I'm like, oh, that's not where I want to go. I'm going for longevity. I lost 32 pounds already. I'm going to go and get in shape. And this is at the age of 40 or right around 40. So I kept going, and this has been going on. I show up for myself every day. Let's talk about the impatience piece, because that's where a lot of people, I think, really get lost in trying to trust the process. You know, people want to feel a shift before they trust the process. And what actually happens is the other way around. You trust the process first. Now we try to talk ourselves into trusting it, right? But you say, the longer you stay in it, obviously, the more it's going to feel comfortable and this shift's going to happen. But you've got to just set aside that patience for a while. And if you are a person of your word saying, I really want these results for lifelong health, then life is going to unfold anyway. Why have to rush it into this little, I got to have the results in 30 days, otherwise I'm not doing this? Because I think you can get behind this. Should you show up and be radically honest with yourself and show up every day with your goal and just follow the plan best as you can, within a year's time, there's going to be some results. If it doesn't show up on the scale, it's going to show up in your strength. It's going to show up in your energy. It's going to show up in your mindset. And if we're not talking about a year goal, are we? We're talking about longevity, ongoing from here on out. So year 2, year 3, year 4, that consistency, you've got to believe that there's going to be results. So when you can set that patience aside and just say, you know what, I'm showing up anyway, the process is going to work. But it needs time, and it needs you to stay in it, especially if you've been off track for a long time. If you've ever done any snorkeling and the current takes you off track and you lift your head and you're like, how am I so far from shore? Well, if you don't course correct right away and you keep going, you'll be drifting farther and farther away. And it's going to take a bit of time to get back on track, right? So you need to stay in it so doubt ends up getting diluted. You know, that's where the real change lives, not in the first week, but it's in the weeks after you've decided and you stop looking for an escape hatch. You've got this, my friend. That's another Power Blast podcast in the books. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, when you are ready to recharge your battery, make sure you go to talktoperry.com. That's talktoperry.com. That's Perry. And I want to listen. I want to hear, you know, what's going on. I want to help you in that 15-minute call to recharge your battery and reclaim your power so that you're off and running and creating massive momentum toward your dream. Also, every day, I am delivering more motivation, support, tips, and strategies inside my free community with amazing people like yourself. And we are conquering the mindset and the fitness. I do 52 weeks of free training in there. Plus, I coach and I mentor people, as well as give you access to tons of resources and guides. It's called my Upside Down Fitness community because we work on a lot of mindset stuff, the inside stuff. And we're a fun group of people striving to make healthier habits in this awesome chapter of life. So make sure you get in there. I promise you'll absolutely love it. Just head over to upsidedownfit.com and you can get into the group. And hey, you would be an awesome friend if you get over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave an honest rating and review for the Power Blast podcast. It helps awesome people like you find this show even faster, and that's who I'm looking for, awesome people like you. That's all I have for this week, my friend, and just to let you know, you absolutely rock. That's all I have for this week. I'll see you on the next Power Blast podcast, and always remember, it's never too late. We'll see you next week.